Designing in Adobe Illustrator is very similar to that of Photoshop. One of the main differences, like we've discussed, are vector graphics versus raster graphics. Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphic design program. So you can create shapes and lines, and they're fully scalable without losing any resolution. You can, when designing print designs in Adobe Illustrator, you can insert raster graphics. I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to go to File. We're going to say Place. We're going to select our image and click Place. Gives it this icon right here. There are two ways of doing this. If I simply clicked, it's going to insert the image at 100%. You would have to scale that down to fit on the page, especially this image, because it's far bigger than the page layout itself. The other way is to click Place, drag a box to indicate how big you want that image on the page layout. Once you let go of the mouse, the image gets placed in there. Notice that the proportions are what the image is itself. So there's no fear of moving these out of proportion to stretch the image, which would be a bad thing. In the document itself, I wanted to review a couple of key items that we have to be concerned with when we're dealing, especially when we're dealing with print design. If this piece of paper is going to be printed on the press with this design included, we have to consider bleed marks if the image is going to bleed to the edge of the page. Final product may be trimmed and leaving a slight white border, which would be a bad thing. So when we're designing for print, we have to consider some design basics. We have this red line indicates the bleed area. So when you're designing in Illustrator, you would want to have this bleed area to give you an idea of where to insert the images, the edge of the images. That would give that safe area. So when the printed piece goes to the bindery and they get trimmed with these trim marks, if this image extends to the bleed area, there's no error in getting any unwanted white areas if the image is right up to the here. The other area that we have to be concerned with is the safe area. That's indicated by this inside blue mark here. Everything within this area is going to be safe without fear of being trimmed off. So when these pieces of paper get sent to the bindery, they're going to be trimmed along here, ideally, but sometimes it gets a little more or a little less. So we want to define areas to make sure that our design appears proper when it's completed. So we have bleed marks, we have trim marks, we have safe areas. These areas right here you would put in as a crop mark for the print service so that they know where to trim the page. This, if it's a full color run on the press, you would have these bars here to give them an indication of what the colors are so they can match it exactly. So let's go back to our document here. To set the bleed mark in Adobe Illustrator, you would go up to File and Document Setup. You want to make sure that your units are whether inches or pixels, depending on what your preference is. You can set the bleed area. Commonly, it's 1/8 of an inch. When we click OK, notice that the red area gets marked off here. That's our bleed area. So if this image is intended to bleed off the page, in your design, you would position it like that, so that when it gets trimmed, there's no fear of that image being, the white area being shown around the edges of that image. The text, when you insert the text, that is fully scalable. Everything done in Illustrator is vector, except for placed images, placed raster images. So when this gets enlarged, you would be able to see the pixelation happening here. You would not see anything on the type or any shapes that you define. You can create shapes using the pen tool. And there's our sheet. There's our completed path. There are two arrows here, the direct selection and the selection tool. The selection tool lets you move and place objects. The direct selection tool allows you to move and change, modify any shapes by clicking, and you can redrag the paths. And these handles here adjust the curves. So that's how you change shapes that you define in Adobe Illustrator. And take the direct selection tool. There we go. So there's one of our shapes. There's some text. There's an image. We have bleed marks defined. So that's how you would design for a print document. Obviously, this is not a completed design, but it gives you an idea of where the basics are in order to set up a document for press.